Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video.
Oh, this is harsh. These are harsh conditions. we've had rain, sideways sleet. I'd say probably about now actually. Let me spin you around so you can see that. I reckon we're getting what I would regard as proper snowflakes all of a sudden. Brilliant. Now there's something that I don't do very often as a photographer, as a landscape photographer, and sometimes I wonder if that makes me a bit of a bad photographer or whether it makes me inferior to other photographers. I don't think so, but sometimes in not doing this regularly, I definitely feel inferior to other photographers, which is absolutely my problem. It's my own problem. But this thing, I'm doing it right now, and that's what I wanted to get into in this video. I'd love to know your opinions on this. I've got a couple of my own, and yeah, we'll get into this photograph here because it's all about this really. So I'm just taking a quick photograph really of some of these trees you can probably see on this cliff edge here. There's loads of beautiful texture. And I took this very photograph probably about 2 months ago in completely different conditions. And I do really like this version. However, subconsciously I think, I always just thought, yeah, I could better that at some point. I'll wait till there's some snow. And here we are today, you know. So this version I'm taking now may not be better, but this is kind of the premise of exactly what I wanted to talk about in today's video. This is something that I never do, or very rarely do I return to the same spots to take the same photograph and try and improve on the previous composition. Now, I think this is a really important thing for landscape photographers to go out and do if they want to get better photographs, if they want to become a better photographer. And you'll hear that a lot. However, I think it's mad because I never practice what I preach, or like I said, I very rarely do it. And this is where I think it's quite interesting, because doing that, yes, it's important. I think there's so much value in it, but it just doesn't do that much for me. And I think, as the title of this video suggests, you know, I can probably answer my own question and say, of course it doesn't make me a bad photographer. I'd say there are loads of yous out there that are exactly the same as me. You don't particularly get a massive buzz from returning to the same spots. Now, with that being said, I just really wanted to think of an example, because when I talk about these things, I really like to show both sides, you know. This is probably one of, if not my favorite ever photograph. I love this image. It was in a fairly local woodland, and it took me, I think, 5 visits before I got that image. It was quite laborious for me to keep going back, but ultimately that's what I got. And that's what I'm trying to talk about when I'm saying there's so much value in it. But it's so rare that I do that, because ever since I first picked up a camera, landscape photography for me has always been about exploration, discovery, and, you know, finding new compositions, finding new subjects to photograph. And that's just me. Of course, it doesn't make me inferior, it doesn't make me superior. And I guess that's going to be the overriding message, isn't it? You've got to do what you want to do, regardless of whether or not you think it's going to bring you value as a photographer. For me, I mentioned this in last week's video, I used the phrase, inspiration is king. You have to do what inspires you. That's A, going to make you a better photographer, and B, is going to give you the longevity of enjoyment in what you do. You always have to prioritize what inspires you. And yeah, of course it doesn't make you any less of a photographer. So over the past few days, we've just had 2 or 3 little weather warnings for the snow, and I got a bit excited, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll go down to Wales, I'll go to Scotland. And then I thought, you know what, Henry, let's just relax, stick local, stick to the Lake District, to what you know, and what will be will be. I thought I'll go up a hill to increase my chances of a bit of snow, and here we are. The only thing is, moaning landscape photographers, man. the snowfall, I think I mentioned it before, I don't know if you could tell, it's like, it's not quite there, it's a bit sleety and sparse, you know, but it is what it is, it's wonderful. It's so lovely to be out in these conditions, and it's so quiet and peaceful, you know. And I've chosen this particular fell because of all the trees, just fantastic subjects. It's mostly kind of larch trees and silver birch trees, and yeah, just wonderful subjects to photograph. So I'm just going to keep wandering around, see if anything takes my fancy. So I'm just stopping here for a sec, first and foremost for a sandwich, nice and squashed. We're talking char grill chicken oval bite from Greg's, quality. I love it when they're squashed. Nice flat sandwich, but there we go. I think I found a photograph as well, and this is good because I could sit here and chill and munch away, regain some energy. Quite tired today. And yeah, just visualize the photograph, almost create the composition in my head, but it's going to involve some of these wonderful silver birch trees. I love them this time of year. Let me see if I can find some closer to us. You can't really tell there, but you know, this sort of beautiful like maroony colour, like that one there's quite vibrant with it. I think it looks fantastic. So yeah, we'll get set up in a sec after my little munch. So I think this one's going to be all right. I think this is going to be quite nice. I'm delighted that I found this really, and it definitely helped genuinely for me to sit down for a while, enjoy my sandwich, and I did a little live on Instagram as well. Hello everyone. I thought I'd do a quick live whilst I'm having my butty out in the snow. Do go and give us a follow, by the way, on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, those sorts of things. If you just search Henry Turner Photography, you'll find me there, but I'm pretty active on them, and I love a chat on lives and stuff like that. But anyway, there's something very specific about this photograph that I have to show you. So I'll pop it up on the screen there for you to see. This is pretty much exactly how I'm going to take this image. I might do one as a panorama as well, but this is just like a 16:9 crop, and I like the way that it looks. Now what's really important here is I'll put a few arrows or something up on the screen as you're looking at it there, but there's so many specific little gaps and spaces on this photograph. There's a couple at the edges, which is so important to me, you know, between the edge of the frame of the photograph, there has to be a nice tiny little bit of breathing room before you get to any subjects that are in the frame, you know, in this case the silver birch trees. And then the biggest tree, this is really important, there's just 2 or 3 little places where I've had to change my height, my left and right so slightly, because I'm zoomed in at like 70mm here, so we're quite far zoomed in. And again, just a few little tiny gaps and breathing spaces just allows the whole image to flow. What I always say, what I always think as a non-photographer, somebody who has no idea of composition whatsoever, would likely look at this image or an image like this, and hopefully anyway, they'll feel like a nice flow. It'll feel comfortable to look at the image, if that makes sense. Whereas if those branches are protruding into other trees in too many places, if there's no gaps on the sides or the top and bottom of the frame and there's just a tree half cut off, do you know what I mean? I feel like that'd be almost a bit more of an uncomfortable, I think it'd give the image like a little bit of tension almost, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm feeling happy with this one at the minute. I'm shooting at f6, focusing on this near big silver birch tree to get a tiny bit of blur off in the background as we go deeper into the image. ISO 64, and then I'm about 1/80th of a second. I'm trying to freeze the snowfall somewhat if there is going to be any snowfall in the frame, but just have, you know, a tiny little bit of motion blur. But yeah, liking the look of this one. Oh, I think there's a bit more snowfall now. I'm feeling really happy about that image, although I don't know if it's like really good or anything just yet, but you know yourselves, when an image just feels good, you get a positive feeling about it. So yeah, yous have seen it. I'll have to wait until I get home. With a hot drink, I'll tell you that much. Now, as we move on, I want to say another massive thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Oh, so I'm so proud to be sponsored by Squarespace. If you've never heard of them, I'm here to tell you all about them. They're an all-in-one platform that you could use to build your very own website. But it is so easy. Do not be scared about it. So you go on their website and you build your website on it. And yeah, it's well easy. They've got loads of wonderful templates that you could use. You add a few bits and bobs of text and images, and honestly, before you know it, you'll have a website up and running in a couple of hours. If, like me, you'd like to sell things through your Squarespace website as well, you could do that. They've got plenty of what's called e-commerce packages, and I use it to sell my prints, my ebooks, my one-to-one workshops, calendars. I'll be having a physical book coming out soon, like I've mentioned a little bit, but it makes my job very easy. And as I always say, I wouldn't be able to run my business without it. And last but certainly not least, it's important to know that Squarespace have got fantastic award-winning customer service. So as easy as it is to build your website, you'll have all of that support as well. So again, if you're intimidated by the prospect of building a website, I highly recommend Squarespace for all of those reasons, but mainly, yeah, because it is just so simple to do it. If you'd like to give them a go, head over to squarespace.com/Henry Turner, or there'll be a link in the video description below, and that'll give you a 14-day free trial. So you may as well give it a go. You've got nothing to lose. Now, if you like your free trial, make sure to use the offer code Henry Turner at checkout to get a brilliant 10% off your first purchase. So I just wanted to show you, look down there in the valley, it looks like there's no considerable amount of snow at all. So it looks like my plan to come up to some of these higher elevated areas has worked really well, because had I have stayed down there, I'd have probably been looking up at all of this snow. So this is good. Now, I wanted to chat about what we were talking about earlier with regards to, you know, am I a bad photographer because I don't revisit compositions and locations all the time? And you know, a lot of people say that this is a surefire way to be a good photographer, you know, that almost like that we should be doing that. And I think just, yeah, in a broader sense, I think it's really important as a part of learning to be a photographer that you take the advice that people give you on board, but you have to go away and figure out if that advice works for you. And like myself included, I try my best to share my experiences and anything that I've learned over the years with yous, but it doesn't mean that what I say or anyone else says is gospel, is true, you know. A lot of things are kind of true across the board, objectively, I suppose, but at the same time, a lot of things might not work for you. Just because something works for you, it might not work for me, and vice versa, you know. So I think that's really, really important, because you might be going out to the same location all the time, as today's example is, thinking you're doing the right thing, when in reality you're just doing something that's not inspiring you at all. So yeah, I think that's really important, and in all aspects of photography, whether it be which locations, you know, I might say to you, oh, come to the Lake District, it's quality, you love it. You might come here and hate it and just be wet and windy and think, what is this Henry lad on about? It's not for me at all. And to be honest, to put a positive spin on it, or not even to put a positive spin on it, to put a truthful spin on it, like, that is the fun of art and photography, that subjective nature of it, where we're all so different. That's why for me, I think it'll be a passion for life, you know, because I just don't see how it can get boring, like it's unlimited. Famous last words. Anyway, yeah, I certainly want to see if I can get at least another photograph. This is class. So the conditions have got a little bit more blizzardy, I'm going to say. Not particularly comfortable, however, still fantastic conditions for landscape photography. So I have to stay here, I'm stuck. And I'm taking an image here, just handheld, that I think really is going to be probably the best image of the day so far. And it's focused in on this sort of row of silver birch trees here. There's 4 or 5. There's even a small one off to the right hand side that I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to include just yet, but it's brilliant. It looks like a family. That's what I'm looking at. It looks like a family of 5 or 6 that are sort of chatting away to each other. Perhaps the small child on the right hand side is off having a little tantrum. I don't know what's going on, but that's where my imagination is going. But as a photograph, I'm loving it. We've got a nice background of the fell that's helping to give us some separation, nice and misty. And yeah, just the trees are full of character. That's what I'm loving. I'm shooting at a quick shutter speed, A, because I'm shooting handheld, and B, because the trees are being blown about the gaff. So look at that, in the time it took me to grab the shot and sort of, you know, check that it's all right with the preview and everything like that, within a couple of minutes, it's completely changed. The mist has kind of moved away from behind the trees, and that fell in the background is a lot more visible, which for me, I mean, obviously there's no right or wrong here. For me, it all just looks a lot messier than it did before. I feel like that mist off in the background was, in a way, it was sort of making the image. It was giving us that separation between the subject and the background, you know. But yeah, got it just in time. Oh, so look at this. We're not too far from the van now. There's the road. We're down from the fell, and look, no snow, barely any snow, not really even that much of a sign of any. So I definitely made the right choice going up. Oh, that fell, I'm delighted. So I reckon, potentially, bold statement because I haven't been home yet, 1 or 2 nice images from today's photo shoot. And yeah, fingers crossed, and thank you all so much for tuning in. Please drop a comment down below regarding what I was chatting about earlier about, you know, are we bad photographers if we don't follow the advice of going back to the same spot? I mean, it's daft really, isn't it? We're not bad photographers because of that, but yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on all of that. And more than anything, thank you so much for your support, especially if you've stuck around right till the end. I appreciate you very much. Please do hit the thumbs up button if you could spare me a quick second. It proper helps me out. And subscribe to see more content from this head. See you on the next adventure, ladies and gents. Out.